Good morning, everyone. Today kicks off our Normandy World War II tour. And so we're going to be touring the beaches of Normandy, some of the big places that were impacted by the war. But first, we're starting off on this little town of Honfleur. And Honfleur was actually spared mostly during World War II, one of the few cities along here that had been. And so it still has some of that old medieval charm and flair from way back. And also, this is supposed to be the birthplace of Monet. There's a beautiful little port here, and there's supposed to be plenty of eye candy for us to see today. We're gonna take a little stroll through this little town and hop on the road and go tour some of the Normandy beaches. So let's go, guys.
We rolled in here yesterday afternoon to a place we found on the Park for Night app. And I don't know if we've ever seen this many motorhomes in one place. Now we've heard this is just about the only place you can park around here. It was $14 per night and pretty much no services. It's supposed to have electricity, but ours didn't work, and that's okay. But look at all these campers. I wonder where they all are. I wonder if they're in this little town.
Well, last year when we came into France, when we just got our van, we drove down through the Alsace region and did the Christmas villages. And when we got to Colmar, there was vans everywhere. We couldn't even find a parking place. So I don't know if this is kind of the season or this is just the place, but I guess we're gonna go find out. Oh, we are pretty lucky. These boats are just coming in, and it looks like they're dragging for shrimp, and some of these shrimp are so fresh they're still flopping around, but you can see the catch today. So I am guessing that most of these creatures come from the bottom, so they are dragging those chains along the bottoms with the nets to scurry the fish up into the nets. Mostly fish and flounder at this particular stop, but the boat literally just came in, and you can see they're back in the back working to unload the boat. Maybe they were dragging up for shrimp. It looks like maybe scallops too, and they have all these big beautiful scallops they're picking out here, right here. They're cleaning them. Wow. That's probably maybe for scallops, huh?
Maybe so, yeah. Deep water scallops.
They drag those chains, but those are big nets. All right, I think we cracked the code. I think it's definitely scallops. You can see these have fairly big nets on them, fairly big chains, and they picked up some rocks. But if you see right in here, there's a little scallop shells right here, and that's just what we saw them shucking. And so I had some of those at dinner the other night, and this is probably where they came from, right here. All right, it is a bustling little town today, and we got here on a Saturday. And so there is a market all around this quaint little bay. So like we saw in Rouen, this town, Honfleur, also features a lot of half-timber housing. And you can see, as we described in the last video, the timber bracings, and then it's filled with like a stucco type material or like a mud or adobe type material. But look at these old medieval structures here that have stood the test of time. And around this marina with the colors of the hues of the browns and the grays and just the old sort of architecture is just really kind of a stunning view. And I imagine it would be gorgeous on a sunny, sunlit day. Today's a little bit overcast and cool, typical fall/winter weather. But nonetheless, it is absolutely stunning. And I gotta be honest with you, there are a lot of people here, and it's kind of like the bay splits the area. To one side, you have all the markets, and surprisingly, in the markets, they're probably about 70% closed. And then There are some other artisanal items kind of blended in, some household items. But there is a lot to this town. I don't think we're gonna see a lot. This is a stroll on our way to our next journey. But there's a little food market up in here. And so here they have some chicken and some eggs. All sorts of different items up through here.
In the town on the hill where the apples grow, the church bells ring every hour or so. I took a little walk just to see the ships coming in. The sun rose up right above the highway. Black, blue, red, yellow, golden skyway. It's like the day that you jump into the wind. I can't go back down to that water again. These old muddy shoes keep on walking the streets. Someone's bride buying Egyptian sheets. The window display of some little store in town. And there's my reflection against the morning light. Hello, Mr. Ghost, Mr. Skeleton White. You better comb your hair, you better wipe that George Clay off your brow. You better stand up straight, man, these people hardly recognize you now.
And one of the things to see while you're here in Honfleur is this wooden church. And I don't know all the details, but back in the day when it was built, they didn't have any church builders available. And so some boat builders built this. So inside the church, it actually looks like an upside down hull of the boat. And it said that if you flipped it over, it would actually float.
You guys that follow the journey and watch all of our videos may remember that a while back, me and Kurt did our family tree and tracked it back as far as we could, trying to figure out where we came from over here in Europe. And one of my direct ancestors came from this part of France. And he was actually the governor of Normandy, the first governor of Normandy, appointed by the king. So that's my cool thing I have in my family tree. But as we were researching this area, we learned that there was actually a restored home here that a governor had lived in. That's what we had learned. So we wanted to come here and see if it was my ancestor. Come to find out it was not. It was not a governor that lived here. It was a lieutenant that was appointed by a governor during that exact same time frame. So probably appointed by my great whatever grandpa lived here, and his job was to protect this area. It used to be more walled in and all of that, but most of the places that my ancestor would have lived in or had anything to do with were destroyed during World War II. So this is kind of special that it's a building in this area that dates back to when my ancestor lived here. So it would have been much cooler if he would have lived in this house, but I'm sure he probably visited it.
Alright, so you just scan your ticket, and then it says 14, and then you just put the card right there.
Channel started.
accepted. Ticket, and then you go. So this right here is Sword Beach, and Sword Beach is one of the 5 beaches that were stormed in the Battle of World War II at Normandy. And this would be the easternmost of the beaches. Now you might think of France's coast as kind of going north and south, but at this point it kind of goes east and west. And over here across the channel we can actually see England. Now it's not as close as Calais, but this right here is where one of the 5 waves came on to Normandy, and this, I believe, was the 3rd battalion from the UK. And as I understand it, there were some mixed French soldiers as well who took the beach right here. But this was a dramatic battle, one of the easier of all of them, but nonetheless had its challenges and complications. They were supported heavily by air and sea, and this was a key battle area right through here. And you can see the beach is pretty long, and so I would imagine up there the Germans are hunkered in, and out here the boats came in and they had to come all the way up through here. Now they said that they sent some specialized troops up here ahead of time to disarm the mines and remove some of the other stuff so that they could bring all the men and all the equipment on board right here. But down there is where the rest of the beaches are, and as we travel down through here, we're gonna learn and we're gonna share with you what we know or learn about these little areas. But interestingly today, you can see that they still have some of the half timber building structures, and then the more modern beach huts they have that we saw up in Calais when we visited France before, or when we left France, and then when we got over on the shores of England.
So last night we slept in the middle of this little town here along the coast, and the city had done a really cool thing and provided 3 parking spaces specifically designed for camper vans, so you don't have to worry about whether you fit in the space or not. And it was right on the street, but once the town settled down, it was plenty quiet for a good night's sleep, and it was free. So that's something you're gonna find all over France, from our experience anyway, is most towns are gonna have somewhere for the camper vans to hang out. So we did that. We got up this morning, we had breakfast, and we got on the road, and we were continuing to head west out along this, I'm going to call it a peninsula of Normandy along the beaches. Yesterday we took you to Sword Beach, which is the easternmost beach. Now I don't know if we told you, and some of you probably already know this, but D-Day was an alliance of mainly 3 countries, the United States, England, and Canada. And they had set up shop over there in Great Britain, and they planned this elaborate attack, and it took months and months and months. But then they came over, and the plan was to invade 5 different beaches, and different countries were landing on different beaches. So the first beach that we showed you yesterday was Sword Beach, which was mainly Great Britain soldiers. Now there were some French and others blended in, but it was mainly under the control of the British forces. There are 5 of those. This one that we're about to show you is Juno Beach, and we're going to take you in order from east to west. After that will be Gold Beach, and then we have Utah and Omaha beaches down at the end. Now, most of our viewers are from the States, not all, but most, and you're probably going to be more familiar with the Utah and Omaha beaches because that's where the United States soldiers landed, and that's what you see in movies like Saving Private Ryan. This beach, Juno Beach, is where the Canadian forces landed, and there's a lot of good stuff we're going to be able to see here and kind of get a feeling of what that day was like. But this was a terrible place to have to land on those boats. for those Canadian soldiers. Let's go take a look at this. So, D-Day, of course, is a famous battle of World War II. But this takes you back to how it kind of all got started. And in 1933, Hitler took power, and a whole chain of events started to happen. The world was watching, but they didn't really do anything. And then, September 1st, 1939, Hitler ordered the invasion of Poland. 2 days later, because of their commitment to Poland, the British and the French governments declared war on Germany. So, I guess that was the beginning of World War II. At the outbreak of the Second World War, Canada's armed forces were limited. However, the Navy and the Air Force were rapidly increased and went into combat, and troops were rushed to Great Britain. From the fall of France in June of 1940, when Germany took over, to the 1941 entries of the Soviet Union and the United States into the war, Canada was Britain's major ally, as it and the Commonwealth stood alone against the Nazi menace. So the Canadian Navy threw all of its resources into what's considered the longest battle of the war. From day one until the very last day of the war, the Atlantic battle, the battle for the Atlantic Ocean to protect the trade routes, went on the entire time. And that is where the Navy was really focused. You can see how many merchant ships were taken down by the U-boats. So these guys were in it from the beginning.
You say peace is just a state of mind. You help me reach it when I leave mine behind. In this city, chaos and dust in our eyes, speeding at our speed, sweetly walking by. You say freedom's all about letting go, stripping down from all the ego, tasting beauty when it aches in your soul, letting all these restrictions go. Feels high in my soul when I think about I shine in your glow. You fill me with light.
Whew, guys, I feel like maybe we should have done a disclaimer before we went into that museum, but I don't think I was prepared for what an impact that place was going to have on me. First of all, I did not know how involved Canada was in the war, and that all of their soldiers were 100% volunteer. They had no draft. But D-Day, that's what this video is about. That's what this location's about. We're standing on Juno Beach. So June 6th, 1944. That was pretty intense, guys. First, I want to start by telling you, I believe it was 17 euros for both of us to go into this visitor center. And they have done a fabulous job there. You start out by going into a movie room where it feels like you're in one of those landing boats where they came up on the shore and the front fell in. And I gotta just tell you guys, I cannot even begin to fathom the courage that those kids, young men, were going through on that boat ride from England across this channel to land on these shores. Hopefully it's not required to ever be repeated again in our history, but unfortunately it probably will one day. But that museum took us through the history of the entire war, and Canada had been in it from the beginning. They were there the whole time. But it's pretty solemn standing out on the beach. That's sacred ground. And I wanted to make sure I told y'all the numbers. So on D-Day itself, the day they landed coming over on those boats, 359 Canadians were killed. Now during the 10 weeks of fighting, which is kind of the Battle of Normandy, not just D-Day, where they went inland and had to liberate all these cities in this area that had been taken over by the Germans. During that 10-week period, 13,000 Canadians were injured and over 5,000 were killed. So, coming from the United States, you learn quite a bit about D-Day and how it affected our country and how it was definitely the most important battle of the war. But you don't learn that much, not the details about the other countries involved. And that just kind of wraps everything up, and I wish I had better words to describe it. But I don't. So we walked around the grounds outside a little bit, saw some of the big guns and the tanks, went inside one of the bunkers. Whew, Juno Beach, pretty intense, guys. First impressions?
I mean, it really was sensory overload. I mean, the historical information that I learned through that, especially after traveling through Europe for a year, not just about this place, but all the wars that were going on at that time. And then I learned a ton about Canada.
Yeah.
And embarrassingly, I didn't know a lot about Canada, but that was a really amazing story. And I mean, honestly, I'm still processing. I'm glad we're going to be going to some other museums, but the scale and the size of this war and the impact it had on the world is just, you know, you see the movies, you kind of think about it, but I just, being here, you just really get a feeling on a whole nother level. I mean, my mind is just about to explode.
Mine too. All right, we're going to decompress a little bit, guys. We'll be back in a little bit. We just had a quick lunch in the van here in the parking lot at Juno Beach, and we're about to get on the road. We have to drive about 10 miles west to the next beach, which is Gold Beach. So that's where we're headed. Kurt whipped us up some bangers and mash, little leftover grocery food from the United Kingdom.
Actually, I got it here.
Oh, never mind. He bought it here. But we are headed to Gold Beach, which is where Great Britain came in and made one of their landings out of the 5 beaches. So let's head that way. Good morning. Last night,
Take the next left onto
we slept there at a little camper van parking spot. What did it cost, Kurt? 11 euros?
11 euros.
11 euros, and you paid at a machine and everything was automated. A little bit of services, not a lot, but a nice place to camp because we were parked right up on the edge of the ocean, overlooking a place called Mulberry Harbor, right?
On Gold Beach.
On Gold Beach. So that was a beach where the Brits came in and landed, and they built like a harbor with, I don't know, we think maybe sunken barges or something like that so they could bring in all the supplies they needed for the war. But our next stops, after running a few errands this morning, and it's super foggy this morning, but our next stop will be the last 2 beaches on the west end of Normandy, and that is Utah and Omaha Beach. And you guys know we're from the United States, and that's where the United States soldiers came in and landed. So this is where we're going to wind this video down. And we will see you in a few days as we go explore the beaches of Normandy where the Americans landed. Cheers, guys. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It really helps us a lot. And if you want to see more of our videos, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you know when new videos come out. We'll see you guys in a few days from somewhere out here in the world. Cheers.